Has your messaging changed since, say, 2017?
No.
And how do you feel about it?
Here's my short answer is no. My messaging hasn't changed since 1985.
Yeah.
My messaging, when we first learned about HIV in 85, I wrote papers about giving condoms to everybody, giving clean needles to everybody. This seems like it's the very least we can do. And at that time, I was a vanguard, and a lot of people were not comfortable with what I was saying. And then I experienced MDMA for the first time in 1985, and I went on television talking about it, like a local morning show, AM Philadelphia. And that was not my first exposure to media, but it's always been my goal to educate about the potential of the drug and the harm associated, and it's always going to be that balance. And there is a little pendulum swinging, but lately things have been swinging toward transgressions and us talking about those transgressions and boundary violations. People in a very vulnerable state when they are tripping, and it's important that the people around them are trustworthy and, dare I say, even sort of have good energy or auras about them. So I'm always happy to focus on harm reduction, but why are we talking about this? Because there's a lot of potential, because there's a lot of benefit. My first book back in 2001 was about MDMA. It was called Ecstasy, The Complete Guide, and that's a nonprofit book to fund MDMA research. And then I did a book called The Pot Book, Complete Guide to Cannabis, also nonprofit funding clinical research. My most recent book is about psychedelics, and I'm actually doing a book signing right after this, right down the hall.
We'll do one of it. This is...
So
yeah.
if anybody... this is a great book, if I do say so myself. It's called Good Chemistry, The Science of Connection from Soul to Psychedelics. And there's plenty of harm reduction in there, but there's also plenty of sort of proselytizing about connection and the sort of fundamental benefits to your body and your mind that come from being connected. Feeling you're part of something bigger than you, feeling like everything is connected. And these are the kind of experiences you can have with psychedelics, is a sense of connection. You can, don't forget cannabis is a psychedelic, so even like a little tiny bit of cannabis, and you might find that you feel more connected to your own body or to nature. And if you have a slightly larger dose, you may feel connected to the universe. And certainly if you have larger doses of psychedelics, you're going to have that sense of everything being connected, of being part of something bigger than you. And those kind of awesome experiences are not just good personally, I would say that they're good for our society and our culture. So I try to write about those things. I try to talk about those things. I've been on the Today Show 26 or 27 times, not always talking about psychedelics, but almost always educating people about drugs, good and bad, and occasionally educating about psychiatric conditions if a celebrity happened to have a manic episode or something. I'd like to personally thank Charlie Sheen and Lindsay Lohan for selling my book, Weekends at Bellevue, so nicely for me for an extended period of time. Most recently, I was actually given 8 minutes on Kelly and Ryan, which if any of you watch morning TV, like that was a double segment. And first of all, I was pretty excited. Kelly and Ryan is like, it's a Disney company. It is about as mainstream as you're gonna get on a morning show. And what started out as, well, we just want to talk about alternative therapies for depression, ended up at 8 minutes talking about macrodosing, microdosing, ketamine, ibogaine, ayahuasca, as much as I could get in those 8 minutes. So one of the things, it's important, anybody here who's doing media, is the signal-noise ratio really matters. You know, you have to kind of come up with sound bites that hopefully won't be taken out of context. I did a podcast this morning. I had the worst soundbite. I'm like, here's your terrible soundbite. I was talking about how when Sanjay Gupta educated people about CBD and THC through the CNN documentary Weed, I was very involved in that documentary. And I basically taught Sanjay's producer about CBD, and then I spent an hour having an interview with Sanjay explaining about CBD and epilepsy. And they ended up doing a documentary where they showed like 2-year-old babies having seizures. And it really convinced people that CBD could be helpful. You know, these kids got better. Charlotte Figge got better. Charlotte Figge. and you know, you cannot make jokes about seizing babies. And yet, today on a podcast, I managed to, because I was talking about how the issue of veterans needing help is very bipartisan. And there aren't that many things these days that are bipartisan. Firefighters, NYPD, NEPD, police. I'm sorry, I'm New York centric. I worked at Bellevue for 9 years and I interfaced a lot with NYPD, EMS, and a group of people called ESU, which are emergency services units, kind of who police call when they call 911. All those people are traumatized, all those people need help. Veterans are traumatized, they need help. These things are bipartisan, and my terrible soundbite, I'm just so glad to share it for you now.
Yeah, just put it out there again.
I was like, you know, the veterans are like the new seizing babies, basically. So it's terrible, right? It's terrible soundbite. Don't say that. But the idea is that there are certain stories that are sticky that we care about and we pay attention to. We care about sick kids. We care about first responders who are traumatized. We care about veterans who have literally put their lives on the line, I'm not speaking metaphorically, who come back and are in very bad shape. And so these are bipartisan things. So.